Do you feel a sense of hopelessness when you think about trying to find the right partner, the perfect person for you? Over the last decade, I've worked with many individuals just like you who are ready to meet the right person. So today I'm going to talk you through the same steps I've worked through with them in the therapy room. Firstly, and this may sound counterintuitive, particularly if you've spent some time thinking about this, I want you to throw out your list. So what I'm talking about is when I work with individuals in therapy, they'll usually come to me, they're ready to find the right person for them, they're even ready to really do some work on themselves to find that right person, but they have this particular idea about what that person will look like, so the perfect package that they will come in. So it's things like they want them to be 6 foot tall, they want them to have brown hair, blue eyes, they want them to love travel, they want them to have a job in marketing or finance, they want them to love yoga, and the list goes on. So it's really important that we shift away from trying to meet this set criteria, which we may never meet, and we move towards thinking about how do we want to feel in this relationship? How do we want to feel when we are around this person? So throw out the list and focus in on that feeling. Okay, so the second thing is the second date rule. This is really important, again, if we're talking about those missed opportunities. The reality is the majority of us, when we go on a date, are quite nervous. So we may present ourselves in a way that's not in alignment with who we really are. In my experience, when I was a manager and looking to put together my ideal team, I would have a second interview rule. Again, the reasons are quite similar because when we're talking about that idea that people are quite nervous in that first interview, so they don't always sell themselves very well. And the flip side of that actually is that you can get those people who sell themselves extremely well in the first interview, but as you get to know them a little bit more, you start to see some cracks in the armor, you start to see that maybe some of what they're saying isn't aligning with the way that they are acting in that second interview. So in my experience, really important that we have that second opportunity to get to know each other. But also really important, remember, we do not want to treat our dates like job interviews. Which brings me to my next point. We want to experience the date, not evaluate it. So we want to move away from this idea that we are there to evaluate this person against a set of criteria. Rather, we are there to experience this with them. Obviously, when we're in the moment, it feels more natural, we tend to be less judgmental, we tend to stop our overthinking mode. But even more importantly, I think we are more in tune with how we feel and we're more in tune with kind of our gut instincts on things. So I think it's really important to put the list aside, to put the interviewing tactics aside, and to really be present in the moment and experience with that person and tune into those feelings that you're having. Next, it's really important to treat it like an experiment. So this is a process of not only you getting to know this person, but it's also a process of you getting to know yourself a little better, particularly if you're new to dating or you haven't dated in a while. It may be a really good opportunity for you to understand what it is that you do like, what you don't like, what you value, what's important to you. So it's a process of getting to understand this person, but also getting to know yourself. So try not to put too much pressure on the situation and really just treat it like a little bit of an experiment. Next, it is really important to understand what's important to you. So understanding things like your own values, knowing what you need to feel more loved in a relationship, understanding what you want communication to look like in your relationship, understanding the ways that you want to experience affection from your partner, and then really coming to a place where you understand those things that are non-negotiable and the things that you're more flexible on. A really important part of this, and I think a step that we quite often miss, is not just focusing in on the other person meeting these needs. It's also identifying what is the work that I need to do in myself in order to have the kind of relationship that I want. So for example, if you're talking about something like communication and you want to have very calm communication where you both feel heard and understood, but you know that you tend to get reactive when you experience more intense emotions, then it may be that you want to do some work on learning how to regulate through those interactions, so some emotional regulation skills. It may also be that you want to do some work on your own communication skills. So really important to understand that this is a process not only of that other person showing you these skills and these qualities, but also that you are showing them the skills and qualities. So this is what's going to attract the right person to you. So it's important that you are willing to do that work in order to be able to be the kind of person or be acting in the kind of ways that you want in a relationship with this future potential partner. Okay, this next one's a pretty big one. This is what I call understanding context and the capacity for change. So when we're getting to know someone, it's really easy to grab a behavior out in isolation and make a bunch of assumptions about that behavior. So for example, if we're on a first date and a partner is late, so then we can make these assumptions about they're not prioritizing me or they're not someone who will prioritize our relationship. Remember, we're in the stage of getting to know each other. So this is a really good opportunity to get an understanding about how that person responds when things don't go well in the relationship. So when they turn up late, what is it that they do? Do they take responsibility for that? Or do they make excuses? Do they honor your feelings in that moment and acknowledge the impact of their actions? So this is actually a perfect opportunity to get to know this person a little bit more and to understand how they will interact in the relationship. But the key here is communication. So it's really important that rather than going off and talking with your friends about what that behavior may have meant, that you actually lean in to that person, you have the conversation, you find out what was happening for them, you get that context. So you can make sense of that behavior in the context. And obviously also we want to give people a little bit of leeway that if something happens once, but when we start to notice those patterns of behavior, that's when we start to have a better picture of maybe how this person will operate in our long-term relationship. Okay, and the next one is capacity for change. And this is a bit of a tough one because I think sometimes we can give someone a little too much room or have too high of expectations that change is possible when maybe it is not. Or we can go the other way where we don't give the person the opportunity to grow or to learn new ways of being so that they can meet our needs. So I'm sure you've heard from a friend or seen somewhere on the internet this idea that people will never change. I don't believe this. I think for the majority of people, so I will say the majority, not everyone, but for the majority of people, change is possible. The key ingredient, though, is their willingness and desire for that change. So it's kind of like if we think about someone who can't ride a bicycle, right? They can learn how to ride that bicycle. It's not their fault that maybe they never had access to a bicycle. So maybe there's someone who's never been in a relationship. So they've never had the opportunity to develop these skills. Or maybe they haven't had a partner who wants this deeper emotional connection. So they haven't had the opportunity to sit in that greater intimacy. So there's skills that need to be developed. And the reason I am really highlighting this because this is most of us. Most of us will need to develop some relationship skills broadly, but also in every new relationship. So it's really important to understand that we cannot force them onto the bike. Sure, we could try. We could run alongside them, holding them on the bike, but at some point we have to let go and they're just going to fall over. They need to be willing to get on that bike, to practice, to experience some of that uncomfortability of having a few accidents, getting it wrong before they get it right, and they can have that consistency. So really important to understand, do they want to change? And this isn't about words, this is about actions. See that intent quite early on. If there's an issue that's been raised in the relationship and this is something that they need to develop skills on or you need to work through together, are they willing to do that work? Are they willing to show up and sit in those uncomfortable spaces to have the kind of relationship that you both want? If you found this video helpful, hit the subscribe button now and check out my other videos to improve connection and communication in your relationship.